Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm checking out the XJJJ JJ-3 handheld gimbal from gearbest.com, and that is not easy to say, believe me. So about a year or so ago I got interested in these handheld stabilizers, and why not? We all love stabilized footage. It's an aspect of the RC hobby, but they were too expensive to buy. In fact, they still are. You will struggle to get one for under £200. So I decided to build my own. I took the handle of a torch, I repurposed a quadcopter's 3-axis gimbal, and I built my own. I even added a joystick so you could control it on the back. And to be honest, I don't use it enough, but now there is a cheaper option, and that is this one. So the JJ-3 is cheaper than all of the rest. It's £150 or so it's still expensive for what it is, but it's much cheaper than the other options that you can get. So what do you get in the box? Well, it comes in a nice box and it's padded so you can use this for storage. You get a battery charger which just plugs into a USB cable there, and you're given this adapter as well so you can plug in the cable there and charge the batteries. So I should probably talk about the batteries. The batteries came installed already, so just unscrew the handle there, and it is really just like a torch handle. And we are given 2 of these batteries. Now these are 18350 900 milliamp batteries, so similar to the ones that I did in my build, except they are smaller and only 900 milliamps, so I'm not sure how long the batteries are going to last. So this is running off a 2-cell, and you know, the most success that I have ever had of building gimbals and getting them to run is using a 2-cell battery, so that's pretty cool. These just slot into the charger like that, and then the lights flash until it has finished charging them. Now, because it's charging from USB, it does take a while for these to charge. I did charge it through a computer. I imagine if you use this, it will charge much quicker. So let's get on to the features of the gimbal. I'm just gonna put these batteries back in there and screw this in. So one thing that I do like about this gimbal is that you can fit a variety of cameras to it. So I've got the Yi camera fastened to it here, but it does take a GoPro, and it takes pretty much all of these action cameras. And that is because it is using just these little screws here, and you can adjust it. So you can put any size camera in it, really. I say any size. It needs to be an action camera of this form factor, and it doesn't really want to be over 90 grams because you're going to need to balance it. So you can see if I put the Yi camera up against this motor here, it drops to one side. So if we just move it along a little bit and tighten the screws a bit, it should sit fairly flat. And from my gimbal knowledge, that is what you want out of a gimbal. You want it to sit as flat as possible without it being turned on. So, speaking of turning it on, let's do that. We have got a button at the back here. Now, there isn't any joystick controls, so you aren't able to adjust the pitch or angle. Well, kind of. I'll show you the features because you can kind of do that with the various different modes. So to turn it on, you've got this button here, and it starts up really quickly. You can see there that as soon as it's turned on, it starts working, and it looks pretty good, you know, it's not too bad. The only thing I noticed is it is getting some roll drift, so after a while it does start to drift around, and that is a problem with gimbals in general. And I do find with this one that if it does sort of go out of shape, if you turn it off and turn it back on again, it resets itself. So to me, that is evidence of a bad IMU calibration. And they do recommend with gimbals that when they travel far or haven't been used for a while, you need to recalibrate the IMU. Now, there is some information that you can do that. There's a USB port on the side there, but there's no instructions at all. And I've had a look online, and there's no specific software for this particular gimbal. There is just some software that's entitled JJ 1 or something like that. So I'll have to see whether I'll have any success at that. But I believe people using these gimbals, they just turn it off and turn it back on and it sort of resets. So yeah, a bit of a downside to that already. It doesn't seem to keep its level for very long at all. So let's talk about the mode. So the mode that is standard is a sort of locked pitch and roll, but then the yaw sort of follows. So you can see if I turn it around, then the yaw is dampened, but it follows. So that is the first mode. Oh, got a bit out of shape there. And the second mode, so if you press this button again, it then locks the heading like that. So every axis is now locked. And if you are in that mode and sort of press it for a couple of seconds, then it will go into a follow me type mode. So everything is locked, but you can see if I tilt the gimbal up, it will sort of pitch up and pitch down. Now this might be quite good for filming aircraft actually, and I'm gonna try that a bit later. So to come out of that mode, you press again and it should be back into that sort of pitch and roll lock, but then we have got the yaw following. Now you can see it's gotten out of shape quite a lot there. So I really do hope that there's something that I can do to calibrate the IMU, because I think that is the problem. But that's all the modes. It is pretty straightforward, this one. So let's just reset that. Turn it off and turn it back on, because I just want to share something that I learned about gimbals. See, when I first made one of these, I thought, oh, it's going to be great. You can run about with it, you can shake it, and you're going to have perfect, stable footage. But anyone who knows anything about gimbals will know that that isn't the case. In fact, if you take, for example, the gimbal on the DJI Phantom, it isn't very good. If you pick the Phantom up and sort of run around with it and shake it, then the footage isn't very steady. It's the quadcopter with all of its sonar, with its optical image stabilization underneath and its sensors. It makes the quadcopter as stable as possible, and the gimbal is just doing the extra bit of work. So if you are getting one of these gimbals and think you can run around with it like crazy, it's not true. In fact, what you have to do is be as steady as possible to get any decent shots. Otherwise, you're going to get vibrations and things like that. So, of course, if you spend a lot more money, then you will get a better gimbal and it will deal with those better. But those are so expensive. And the only expensive gimbal that I have got is the Zhiyun gimbal for a quadcopter. I did a review of that some time ago now. And I think if I was to spend a lot of money on one of these stabilizers, I would go for one of those. However, I'm going to check this one out because it's cheap and I think a lot of people will be interested in it because it's versatile. You can put a lot of different cameras on it. And if we can get half decent shots out of it, then it's doing a better job than just holding the camera in your hand. So I also want to see if I can do anything with the IMU connecting it to the computer. So let's go and do that as well. So here we are on the manufacturer's website, which is XJJJ.com, and sadly it's all in Chinese. They do have an English version, however there seems to be less options when you select the English website. So if we go to support and then download, and then download here, there only seems to be a PC tool, which I have downloaded, and the JJ-1 firmware. So I have got the JJ-3 gimbal here, so there's no updated firmware. Now I have downloaded the PC tool, and here it is. And they recommend that you put the batteries into the gimbal, but then don't turn the gimbal on and connect a USB cable to it and put it in your computer. And I have done that. And when I open this tool here, it just says USB link lost, and there's no option to select any different COM ports at all. So It looks like the options are there to, you know, write new IMU details, but I can't do anything with it, sadly. So if we go onto the Chinese version, Chrome will actually translate it for me, and if I go onto there, it translates it, and if I go into the download section here, there are more options. You've got the JJ-3, which is the one I've got manual, but when I download it, nothing happens, nothing opens, it doesn't save anything. We've got the PC tools there, and we've got this other tool, JJ-2 head tool. So I thought, well, I'll download that, and when I open that one, it actually comes up with COM7, and I've seen a similar app to this in the past. So this usually lets you connect here, and it says something like COM7, but everything's all in Chinese, and when I move the gimbal around, nothing happens. So this reminds me of the Zhiyun tool. So I wonder if I can use the Zhiyun tool to calibrate this. I need to give that a try. But the programs on the website just are no good, so if you didn't want to take it any further than this, then you can't calibrate the IMU, and the gimbal is going to drift, and you're just going to have to turn the gimbal off and back on for it to reset. So this is the Zhiyun gimbal tool. As you can see, it looks very similar to that other program in Chinese. However, if I try to open COM7, it just says unable to open serial port, and I have tried all of these different variations and nothing opens. So I wonder if I can take the options on here and boot up that other app and see if I can translate them to get it to calibrate the IMU. So here is that other app, and it does look like COM7 is opening there. I can't tell though really, so if I select that, it does look like that's working. So can I click this down here and calibrate the IMU? Doesn't seem so. See, there's nothing to say that this tool is going to work for this gimbal either. It does look like it's connected, but if I remember right, with the Zhiyun tool, you would get directions down here on where to position the gimbal, and you would also get a readout down here as well, and nothing is reading. So it looks like we are stuck with the stock device. So I have got my GoPro Hero 4 recording, and I'm just carefully moving around. Does seem like the gimbal is tilting to the side. Gonna reset it. I'm gonna try do some walking, which you shouldn't really do with a gimbal. Let's go over to the field, because there's usually some kind of drone flying. There's a guy around here. He's always out here flying drones. Yeah, it looks like the gimbal is losing its angle again, which is a shame. if I can use that follow function. Seems to work, but it's lost its roll angle again. So after just a couple of seconds, the gimbal starts to roll and it remains steady, but it's losing its upright ability. There's also some drift when you start walking around as well. Definitely a IMU calibration problem. I do like the tilt function, but it doesn't work when the yaw isn't locked. So if I yaw all the way around, it stays in the same place. Let's check out the stability of this compared to the Phantom. Gonna hold it completely still. And again, the roll is drifting. It's a shame. So to conclude, I think with not having the ability to recalibrate the IMU is going to make it difficult for me to use this on a daily basis, which is what I was after. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not completely unusable, but the roll does start to drift after a while, and you're going to have to reset it. Interestingly, the pitch doesn't drift, and again, that is a characteristic of a bad IMU calibration. Now, the quality of this is really good. It feels premium, it's really sturdy, and the price is right. It's just lacking with the software. So if they ever do release a firmware updater and a tool to recalibrate the IMU, I'll link it in the description, because really that's the only thing that is missing with this. I think it has great potential if you are given the option for that. But until then, I'm going to have to recommend something else. Now, personally, I'd spend a little bit more money and go for the Zhiyun products. Now, I have reviewed a Zhiyun quadcopter gimbal in the past, and the quality was fantastic. It was the best gimbal for a quadcopter I have ever reviewed, so I will link that in the description. They have their version of this, which I think is called the Z1, and it's about £270, but it has a joystick on it, it's got all the software, and it has very minimal drift when you move it about, so that is what I'm recommending. So there you go, that is my review of the XJJJ JJ-3 handheld gimbal from GearBest. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful for your gimbal purchase. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.